That's what she said when I stood at the door last Thursday night, holding a takeout bag in one hand and a bottle of her favorite wine in the other. No smile, no warmth, just that cold, sarcastic question, followed by a sigh and the sound of her bare feet disappearing into the hallway. I didn't answer. I just walked in slowly, placed the food on the counter, and stared at her reflection in the microwave door. She didn't even turn around. She was on the phone, whispering again. This time it was laughter. Short, breathy, the kind I hadn't heard directed at me in over a year. I knew that laugh. I used to live for it. Now it made my stomach twist. I didn't eat that night. I lay on the couch, fully dressed, listening to the distant hum of her conversation in the bedroom. My name was never mentioned. She wasn't crying. She wasn't worried. She was just gone in her own little world where I didn't exist. That's when I made the decision. No fights. No threats. No long speeches or dramatic exits. Just silence. I got up at 5:12 the next morning, brushed my teeth in the dark, packed a single duffel bag, and left. I didn't even take my charger. That's how sure I was that she wouldn't notice. And she didn't. Not that day. Not the next. She didn't call. Didn't text. Not even a, "Where are you?" Not even a, "Did you forget to turn the heat off?" Nothing. Radio silence. I watched from a distance, literally. From the motel window 3 miles from our house. I watched the porch lights blink on. I watched her come and go. Business as usual. As if I never existed. Like I was never there. But something shifted on day 4. She finally texted. "You're really not coming back?" "No. Hi." "No. Are you okay?" Just that one question, as if I was the one being unreasonable for disappearing after 12 years of being invisible. I didn't reply. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. I even typed out, "I was never there to begin with," but I erased it. What's the point? When someone doesn't see you for long enough, even screaming feels like whispering into a canyon. That same night, I got curious. Opened my laptop, logged into our shared cloud account. She never changed the password. She never does. There were pictures. Dozens. Of dinners I wasn't invited to. Vacations I didn't know she took. And a man, tall, tanned, laughing with her in what used to be my seat at the little Italian place where we had our 3rd anniversary. He was wearing my hoodie. She told me she donated it. That's when something inside me cracked. Not like a dramatic explosion, more like a silent snap, like a weak floorboard finally giving way after years of pressure. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark, and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because for the first time, she was the one in the house wondering if she'd been left behind. I didn't vanish to make her jealous. I vanished to find out if I ever mattered. Turns out, I was just the background noise to a life she already replaced. But her panic hadn't even started yet. She laughed when I left, until she realized I wasn't coming back. The motel room smelled like bleach and old carpet, and the pillows were so thin I had to fold one in half just to stop my head from sinking into the mattress. I wasn't sleeping anyway. Every few hours I'd unlock my phone and stare at her last message. "You're really not coming back?" It sat there like a trap, a baited hook dangling in calm water. She wasn't worried I was hurt. She wasn't scared something bad had happened. She just couldn't believe I'd actually done it. That I walked away, not in anger, not in chaos, just, finally. The next morning, I drove to the park we used to visit before life got too busy for silly traditions. I sat in the same spot by the pond where I once proposed with a shaky hand and a mismatched ring box. There were kids feeding ducks. A teenager blasting music from a phone. None of them noticed me. Just like her. It had been 5 days. Still no real apology. No questions about where I was. Only one more text, this time shorter. "Okay. Be like that." That one stung more than the first. It told me everything I needed to know. In her mind, I was overreacting. Dramatic. Childish. She wasn't searching for me. She was sulking because her doormat finally got up and walked away. I stayed away from social media, but I couldn't help checking one thing. Her photo gallery synced automatically to the cloud. I know it's wrong, but I had to know if she was hurting, if she was showing even a flicker of pain. There was nothing. Until that evening. A new picture popped up. A mirror selfie. Her hair messy, makeup smeared slightly, like she'd been crying. But she was smiling, wearing a hoodie that wasn't mine. In the background, barely visible, was a suitcase. Then came another text. "I'm going away for a bit. Don't freak out." No mention of where. No mention of with who. I just sat there, in the dim glow of a motel lamp, blinking at the screen like an idiot. I guess I was supposed to chase her. That's how it had always been. I mess up, I apologize. She pulls away. I run after her. She mocks me. I explain myself. But not this time. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went home. Not to stay. Not to reconcile. Just to see it, the house, the emptiness, the echo of all the years I spent trying to matter. It was strange walking through the front door with no one to greet me. Her scent was still there, faint and flowery, clinging to the furniture like a ghost. The kitchen was clean. No dirty dishes. No coffee in the pot. Just a single wine glass in the sink. I checked the bedroom. Half the closet was empty. 2 drawers were pulled out and left open. Her side of the bed was stripped, the pillow missing. The air felt thinner in there, like something had been ripped out of the walls. Then I found the letter. It wasn't on the counter. Not on the table. It was stuffed halfway behind the TV remote in the living room. A single page, folded sloppily, written in her familiar, rushed handwriting. It read, "Melvin, I don't know what to say. Maybe I should have said something months ago. You just faded. And I didn't know how to stop fading with you. I don't hate you. I just forgot how to love you. I'm sorry if that's not enough." No signature. No, love, Lorna. Just silence at the bottom of the page. I sat there, still holding it, long after the sun went down. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stayed still. But I wasn't done. There was one more thing I needed to see. So I opened the laptop, her laptop, still sitting on the coffee table, lid half closed. The password hadn't changed. Same one she used for everything. I opened her browser, checked her tabs, and there it was. A booking confirmation. 2 tickets to Arizona. Under her name, and someone named Jonas D. Keller. That wasn't a girl's name. And it sure wasn't a yoga instructor like she'd claimed. My hands trembled, but not out of rage. Out of clarity. All this time, I thought she just stopped loving me. But the truth was worse. She replaced me while I was still standing right there beside her. And I had one final message I wanted to leave before I vanished completely. Not for revenge, but for the truth to burn like I burned. I didn't sleep that night. Not a minute. I sat in the living room with nothing but the glow of her laptop, and that ticket confirmation burned into my memory. Jonas D. Keller. I had never heard the name before, but something about it sounded rehearsed, like a name she said out loud in front of the mirror long before she ever typed it into a flight booking site. At 3:47 a.m., I Googled him. It wasn't hard. Just 2 minutes of digging, and there he was, tanned, smug. A guy who did real estate video tours on YouTube with a voice like warm syrup. Of course, he wasn't a secret. He was out in the open, parading his lifestyle like it was some kind of trophy. I clicked through his social media. There were selfies at lakes, steakhouse check-ins, drone shots of open houses, and then one that made my chest lock up. It was from 6 weeks ago. A candid photo of him sitting at an outdoor cafe, and across the table from him, partially turned away, was a woman in a green coat. Her green coat. The one I bought her last Christmas that she said she never wore because it was too bright. Her face was turned just enough that I couldn't see it clearly. But I didn't need to. I knew that shoulder curve. I knew that hair. So that's what those Saturday brunches were. Suddenly every missed hug, every turned cheek, every excuse for me time felt like a lie I had swallowed whole. I could have exploded. But I didn't. Instead, I opened a new tab and bought a burner phone online, set for overnight delivery to a parcel locker downtown. I wasn't planning revenge, not the kind people fantasize about. I was planning an exit so quiet she'd never hear the door close behind me. And before I left, I wanted her to see exactly who she'd erased from her life. I wrote her a letter. Not like hers. Mine wasn't an apology or a plea. It was a journal entry, a confession. I listed the ways she'd made me feel invisible. I told her about the mornings I stared at her cereal bowl just to remember what normal looked like. I wrote about the night I heard her call me a paperweight and how I spent an hour in the car afterward, pretending I had a work call, just so she wouldn't hear me falling apart. I printed the letter, folded it into thirds, slipped it inside the silverware drawer, under the last clean spoon. Then I left again, not back to the motel somewhere new. A small cabin north of the city I'd found on a quiet rental site, listed under the title Perfect for Disconnecting. It was small, bare, a single bed, a lamp, and no Wi-Fi. It was perfect. I needed distance. From the noise. From her. From the version of me who stayed and begged to be seen. 2 days passed. Then came the message. It was one of those green bubble texts from her personal phone. No emojis. No punctuation. Where are you? I read the letter. What is this? I didn't reply. She texted again the next morning. Who was Jonas to you? I almost laughed at that one. The nerve. I guess the better question was, who was Jonas to her? Then she called. I let it ring. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. Instead, she texted one final time. Please come back. We need to talk in person. Please, I made a mistake. That's the one that stayed with me. Not because it meant something, but because it came too late. She needed to talk when I asked, when I begged, when I still wore the same hoodie to dinner every Friday hoping she'd notice I was trying. Now she wanted to talk? I was no longer a man in pain. I was a man in mourning. Mourning the years I spent thinking my silence made me stronger. Mourning the time I wasted waiting to be seen by someone who was always facing the other way. The funny thing? She still didn't know I had a key to her cloud account. She didn't know I saw the new photos. She didn't know what I found on the final night I came home. That part, the part that really shattered the illusion, was still ahead. And when I finally told her what I saw, it wasn't her tears that broke me. It was her smile. I never thought silence could be so loud. After her last message, I didn't touch my phone for almost 2 days. I kept it face down on the nightstand in that creaky little cabin, wrapped in an old t-shirt like I was afraid it might bite me. The only sounds were birds, whine through the trees, and my own thoughts, scraping, grinding, repeating the same awful reel over and over. But I couldn't stop myself from going back into the cloud. That shared folder had become a kind of slow torture I couldn't turn away from. I wasn't looking for more proof of Jonas. I already had that. I was looking for something worse. Something final. And I found it. A video. Short. Just under 20 seconds. Probably meant to be deleted. It was filmed in our living room, my living room, on a night I wasn't there. The lights were low, music in the background, something acoustic. She was dancing. Not for the camera. For him. Her back to the phone, slow and swaying in a way I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. And then he stepped into frame. Shirtless. Confident. Hands on her waist. She turned toward him and laughed, that laugh, the one I hadn't heard in years. The kind that used to belong to me. The video ended there. It didn't need to continue. I sat there frozen, staring at my reflection in the dark laptop screen after it stopped playing, and I realized something gutting. She had never cried for me. Not once. Not really. She cried when I made her feel guilty. She cried when I asked too many questions. She cried when I caught her lying about where she'd been. But she never cried for me. Not for the man she married. Not for the life we built. The only emotion she had ever fought to keep was her comfort. Not our connection. That realization did something to me. It stripped the last layer of maybe I had been clinging to. Maybe she's just lost. Maybe she's struggling. Maybe she still cares but doesn't know how to show it. No. She was done a long time ago. I was just convenient. Familiar. Predictable. A piece of furniture she didn't bother to move but never sat on either. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote again. Not a letter. This time it was a post. I opened a blank document and began pouring out everything, every lonely night, every wordless meal, every attempt at affection that was met with flinching or rejection. I wrote like I was bleeding through my fingertips. But this time, I didn't end it with sadness. I ended it with clarity. I described the day I disappeared. I described the motel, the cabin, the emails I had intercepted, the photos, the voice messages, the ones she never meant for me to hear. I didn't send it to her. I saved it to a USB drive. I labeled the file with the date of our wedding anniversary because she'd never forget that. Then I went back to the house one last time. It was empty again. Not just quiet, empty. Her things were still there, but the energy was gone. Like she had already made peace with my absence. Maybe she assumed I'd crawl back like I always did. Maybe she thought I'd just snap out of it. Or maybe, deep down, she was hoping I wouldn't return at all. I walked through every room slowly. I didn't touch anything. I didn't take anything. Just observed. Absorbed. And when I got to the bedroom, I saw it, sitting on the nightstand, crooked and careless. My photo. The only framed photo of me she kept on her side of the bed. But someone had tucked it behind a lotion bottle, half covered, like it didn't belong in plain view anymore. I took it. Not because I needed it. Because she didn't deserve it anymore. I left the USB drive on her pillow. No note. No explanation. Just a small black rectangle containing the truth she tried to bury under silence, fake smiles, and brunch reservations with someone who didn't even know how I took my coffee. And then I left. For real this time. I didn't block her. I didn't announce my departure. I vanished the way she had taught me, quietly, carelessly, completely. But I should have known better. She wouldn't let it end that way. The next time I saw her name on my screen, it wasn't on a text. It was a FaceTime request from a number I didn't recognize. And she was crying. But not for me. Not yet. The FaceTime request blinked for 9 full seconds before it ended on its own. The name wasn't hers. The number was unfamiliar. But something told me it was her or someone with her. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't stomach seeing her face. Not after everything I'd seen. Not after that video. Not after the cold, flat way she folded me out of her life like a receipt she didn't need. 10 minutes later, another call. Same number. No video this time. Just ringing. I let it pass again. This time, a voicemail followed. I didn't check it right away. I stared at the one new message notification like it might explode if I touched it too fast. When I finally played it, I had to sit down. It wasn't her voice. It was Jonas. Calm, measured, just barely holding back something that sounded like irritation. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't apologize. All he said was, "You left a file here." She saw it. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it needs to stop. She's not okay right now. You broke her." That word echoed, broke, like it belonged in my hands, like I was the one who dismantled her piece by piece. I laughed. Not out loud. Just a dry, bitter smirk. For 12 years, I was the one left outside the emotional door. For 12 years, I sat on the sidelines of my own marriage, watching her drift, watching her disconnect, watching her light up for strangers while dimming the second I entered the room. And now, because I finally handed her a mirror, I was the villain? No, not this time. Still, I didn't reply. I didn't feed it. I stayed in the cabin, off-grid, surrounded by silence and old pine trees and the crackle of firewood I barely knew how to split. I thought the distance would help, but something gnawed at me. Something I hadn't faced yet. Guilt. Not because I left. Not because I exposed her. But because I stayed so long. Because I let myself shrink so far inside someone else's comfort zone that I forgot what it felt like to breathe. I started writing again. Not for her. Not even for me. Just writing. Memories. Half-forgotten moments. Like the time she fell asleep on my chest while we watched a documentary about jellyfish and whispered that I felt like home. Or the first time she said she didn't want kids, not because she couldn't, but because the world was already too messy. Those weren't lies. Not then. She meant them. But feelings age. Some faster than others. And I was still trying to live in a version of her that no longer existed. By the end of that week, the messages started piling up. This time from her. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I should have told you. Please talk to me. Even if you hate me." I didn't hate her. That would have made things easier. I just didn't trust her. Then came the one that broke the dam. "Melvin, I'm pregnant." 3 words. A bomb in my chest. Pregnant? Pregnant by who? I stared at that message for hours. No follow-up. No context. Just a digital grenade tossed into my cabin with no warning. I didn't sleep that night either. Every worst-case scenario ran through my mind. Was it mine? No, couldn't be. We hadn't been intimate in nearly a year. I remembered every rejection, every excuse. She couldn't even stand to be touched by me for most of the last 6 months. So unless biology had taken up magic, the math didn't check out. It had to be Jonas. And if she thought that was going to bring me back? If she thought I was going to play the part of the sad, lonely ex who would be there for her anyway? Then she really didn't know me at all. But I needed to be sure. So I finally responded. 1 message. 6 words. "Whose child is it?" "Lorna." She replied instantly. "I don't know." And with that, whatever thread of empathy I had left snapped clean in 2. I wasn't just a forgotten husband anymore. I was a name on a birth certificate that might not even belong to me. And I had a choice to make. Disappear forever. Or let her see what it really feels like to be left in the dark. I didn't respond again after that. I let the silence settle, heavy and suffocating, like a fog she couldn't see through. Her, I don't know, hit harder than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. It wasn't just about the child. It was about what that uncertainty meant, the carelessness, the complete collapse of whatever foundation we had left. She had gambled with everything, including something that could have changed the trajectory of my life forever, and she didn't even know which hand she played. 3 days passed before I turned the phone back on again. By then, I had already moved out of the cabin. I found a small furnished rental near the coast, quiet, anonymous, close enough to civilization but far from where anyone would look for me. I paid in advance, 6 months up front. The landlord didn't ask questions. That's what I needed, a space with no memories, no fingerprints of my former life. Just white walls and ocean air. When the phone booted up, it vibrated so hard it nearly slid off the counter. She had messaged me 13 times. A few were just crying emojis. Others were walls of text, spiraling apologies, emotional whiplash. One message stood out, longer than the rest. You were right. I took you for granted. I ignored you. I replaced you in my mind before I ever let myself say it out loud. I thought you'd always be there because you always were. And now I don't even know what I'm carrying. I wish I could take it all back. Not the baby. The lies. The way I made you disappear while you were still sitting right next to me. It almost worked. Not enough to forgive her, but enough to make my hand tremble as I read it. I could hear her voice in those words, or maybe I imagined it. I pictured her sitting in the kitchen, head down, knees pulled into her chest, clutching her phone with trembling fingers. That image hurt more than it should have. I wanted to hate her fully. But emotions don't obey logic. Pain and nostalgia can live in the same breath. I left my phone on the table and went for a walk to clear my head. It was raining lightly, but I didn't care. My shoes soaked through fast, but I kept walking. Along the shoreline, past empty docks and closed shops, past tourists with umbrellas, past everything that reminded me of how far I drifted from who I used to be. I didn't stop until I reached the end of the pier, where the waves slapped the rocks hard enough to drown out my thoughts. That's when I made the decision, not to go back, but to finish what I started. If she wanted clarity, I'd give it to her. I called her for the first time since I left. She answered on the first ring. Her voice cracked when she said my name. I didn't let her speak beyond that. I asked her one thing. Do you want the truth, or do you want comfort? There was a long pause, and then she said softly, I deserve the truth. So I gave it to her. I told her I saw the video. I told her about Jonas, about the cafe photo, about the texts I read before she even thought to delete them. I told her I knew the dates didn't add up. I told her she wasn't just careless, she was cruel. That I spent over a year trying to love someone who made me feel like I had to apologize for existing. I told her I didn't leave to punish her. I left because I finally realized I'd become a guest in my own home. She didn't interrupt. She just cried. Not the kind of sobs you perform when you want pity. This was deeper. From the gut. Raw. But it didn't change anything. When she finally spoke, her voice was a whisper. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. And I said, start by doing it without me. I ended the call. I didn't block her. I didn't follow up. I just let it sit. Let her feel the exact thing I lived with for the last 2 years, that hollow ache of absence, the maddening echo of conversations that never happened. The next day, her mother called me. That hadn't happened in years. She left a message too. I didn't want to hear it, but curiosity won. I played it with the volume low. Melvin, she said gently, Lorna's not doing well. I know it's not my place, but she's broken in a way I've never seen before. I don't expect you to come back. I thought you should know. It was strange hearing sympathy from someone who used to roll her eyes at me whenever I tried to talk about emotions. Lorna must have been desperate to let her mom into that part of the story. Still, I didn't respond. But I did start writing again. Not letters. Not posts. Something else. Something I hadn't dared to do in years. A plan for my own life. A place. A name. A future that didn't orbit around someone who couldn't even choose me over a brunch appointment. I had spent so long disappearing for her comfort, I had forgotten what it felt like to take up space again. And now? She could cry all she wanted. But I wasn't coming back to fix a house she had already burned down. She didn't try to call again. Not for 2 full weeks. I think she finally understood that words, especially from her, meant nothing to me anymore. They had dried up, like petals on the floor after the vase shatters. She used to be so quick with explanations, so rehearsed and deflecting, twisting conversations into a performance where she played the misunderstood victim and I played the overreacting, oversensitive husband. But after that last call, after I gave her the unfiltered version of myself, there was no script left to follow. And yet, the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like the calm that sits over a field before a storm cracks the sky in half. I spent those 2 weeks building something. Not furniture. Not a resume. I built clarity. I built routines. Woke up at the same time every day. Took walks without checking my phone. Cooked food that I actually liked, without asking anyone if they were in the mood for salmon or pasta. I read books without feeling guilty for taking up space on the couch. And one night, I even laughed. Out loud. Alone. Because the microwave burned my dinner and for once, no one was there to call me useless or sigh under their breath like I was some burden they couldn't shake. I was still broken in places, but I was repairing on my own terms. Then came the letter. An actual letter. Handwritten. Delivered to the rental office with my name on it. I almost didn't open it. Part of me wanted to toss it straight into the trash and walk away like I had so many times before. But curiosity is a persistent voice, especially when it whispers just loud enough to be dangerous. The envelope was plain. No return address. Inside, 5 pages. The first page was full of apologies, the kind I had read 100 times in different forms. But the next 4? That was new. She had written a timeline. Dates. Locations. Everything she had never told me now spilled out in ink, unedited. She admitted to the first time she met Jonas. Admitted that it wasn't by accident. That she had followed his social media for weeks before ever meeting him in person. She told me about the lunch they had 6 months before I even noticed her pulling away. She wrote that she told him I was just a roommate who was emotionally checked out. That she had used my kindness as a cover for her absence. Then came the line I didn't expect. I was wrong about who you were. I see that now. You weren't invisible, Melvin. I just stopped looking. She didn't beg me to come home. She didn't ask for a second chance. Instead, she told me about the baby. It was his. She had taken the test. Waited for the results. She didn't want to lie anymore, she said. The news wrecked her. Not because of the child, but because she had secretly hoped it was mine, as if that might give her some clean way to tether herself back to me. She ended the letter with a line I read 5 times over. You deserved someone who loved you louder. I sat there, that letter in my lap, the ink still slightly smudged where her tears had soaked into the paper. And I felt. Not anger. Not even sadness. I felt free. Because for the first time in all the months since I left, she finally said something real. Not poetic. Not strategic. Just real. She told me the truth, and in doing so, she confirmed what I already knew, that the version of her I once adored was long gone. And maybe she was never really that person to begin with. But this wasn't the end of the story. Because 2 days later, something strange happened. A man showed up outside the rental unit. He didn't knock. He just stood near the mailbox, arms crossed, waiting like someone who thought he had a right to answers. Jonas. It had to be him. I recognized him from the video. Taller than I expected. Slightly older, too. He didn't look like the charming escape she had built him up to be. He looked tired, angry, nervous. I watched from behind the curtain as he checked his phone, looked at the door, then back at his car. He didn't come to threaten me. He didn't even seem confident enough to talk. He just waited. I never opened the door. He stood there for almost 20 minutes. Then he left. No message. No confrontation. No closure. Just vanished, the same way I had. And in that moment, I understood something powerful. She hadn't just broken me. She broke him, too. She did what she always did. She used silence like a scalpel, carving people down until they didn't recognize themselves anymore. And when the damage was done, she sat in the middle of the wreckage and waited for someone else to clean it up. But I wasn't that man anymore. Not for her. Not for him. Not for anyone who saw me as less than what I was building myself into. I was almost free. But there was one final thread left to cut, and it would require a return I never planned to make. She laughed when I left, until she realized I wasn't coming back. I didn't go back to see her. Not in the way she might have hoped. No dramatic doorstep confrontation. No parking in front of our old house with the engine running. No slow fade-in of music like a movie scene about reconciliation. But I did return to the city. Not for her. For me. There was a job interview at a nonprofit I had quietly applied to while hiding out by the coast. Nothing fancy, managing their small digital systems, helping with logistics. During the call, the woman on the other end said, "You seem like someone who wants a new start." And I told her, honestly, I've earned one. I got the job. Signed a short-term lease in a studio apartment across from a park that smelled like warm grass and dogs and fresh pretzels. I bought a used bicycle. Replaced my old, scuffed shoes. I deleted the backup to her cloud from my laptop. Erased the USB. Let go of the messages. I kept the letter, not for revenge, not for nostalgia, but as proof of what I'd survived. The last thing I did before starting the job was write her one final message. It was short, direct, not cruel. I wish you peace, Lorna. I don't need apologies anymore. I just need distance. I'm building a new life, and I hope someday you build yours, too. I won't contact you again, and I ask you to do the same. We had 12 years. I'm keeping the lessons. You can keep the rest. She never replied. And that silence? This time, it felt like a gift. 2 months later, I found myself sitting on a bench at the park across from my apartment, sipping coffee and laughing, genuinely laughing, at a dog chasing a pigeon in manic circles while its owner yelled helplessly from across the grass. A woman sitting nearby made a comment under her breath about how that dog had no sense of strategy. I turned and smiled. We started talking. Her name was Ellen. Divorced. Graphic designer. Smart. Kind. She didn't ask about my past, not right away. When I eventually told her about Lorna, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't try to hide it behind jokes. I just told her plainly, like someone telling a story they no longer lived inside of. She listened without judging. Then she said something that stayed with me. Sounds like you didn't leave your marriage. You escaped it. It wasn't romantic, not right away. We talked, walked, shared stories about who we used to be before life taught us how lonely love could feel when it's only coming from one side. She made me feel like myself again, not a placeholder, not a background character, but a person with edges and color and weight. And slowly, over the next few months, I realized something I never thought I'd believe again. Love doesn't always come crashing in with fireworks. Sometimes, it walks quietly into your life with a coffee in hand, a bad joke, and no expectations. I never needed revenge. I needed rediscovery. And the truth? She may have laughed when I left. But I smiled when I finally saw myself again.